Hello, and welcome to another fantastic video. This time we'll be talking about, yes, you know, all the good stuff. As always, if you want to ask me any questions about paranormal, aliens, Bigfoots, Egypt, inner earth, etc., feel free to ask. Until I get questions, I will just waffle on. So I'll just start talking. I was going to talk about inner earth, and the reason why I was going to talk about inner earth is because fairly recently they've made a discovery in America, an underground water system where they found human remains, and the human remains date back 13,000 years. Now, they're the oldest human remains in America that they found. But the cave system that they found it in, which is underwater, wasn't actually underwater when it was originally used by the people in the caves, which makes it a fascinating find because that means the water levels had rose enough to flood that cave system. Which then makes you think, okay, well, if there was a cave system there that we only just found out about, that humans were inside, how far deep can these things go? And they can't. The divers have been doing it for a couple of years, each time getting a little bit further and further into this cave. So how far can this cave go, or how deep can it go? Then I mean, if you think about the Tibetans, they actually was aware of inner earth, and they would call it the Shambhala. So a lot of places have this history of knowing about an inner earth as such. The Anunnaki themselves used inside of mountains to not hide, but stay away from us pesky humans. And they would have got away with it if it wasn't for you pesky kids. Yeah, so the inner earth shows up that there, just because we can't see it now doesn't mean it's not there and it's hidden underground. Nikki Everett has wrote, there's tunnels in Virginia all around Skyline Dive. Yes, it's so. I mean, just 13,000 years ago. So clearly, then the flooding for the oldest ones that I was just talking about. You know, that isn't a long time ago for the the flooding to have occurred. So yeah, I'm just going to scroll down and see if there's any questions. As usual, ask me anything to do with paranormal or anything like that, and I will try and answer them. And until then, I will just waffle on. Hi to all the people that's joining, by the way. Hi. Just going back to the inner earth then. Now, the consensus is that there is cave systems that go further underground. We know this because not just because of also the native Indians also used to talk about underground tunnels. What do you? Sorry, Emma Harris has wrote. What do you know about the tunnels beneath the Carpathian? I'm terrible at pronunciations. Mountains, allegedly a German army. Now, is that the one that's in France? Forgive me, I'm trying to remember all the names of these things. Or is it the one that's in Germany? Or I'm just sorry, I forgot where that would be. If you just let me know, give me a hint on where that one is. Sorry. So Kettle Q has wrote consensus amongst who? Well, people. Going back to the inner earth. So when I said the consensus is generally that there is a system of caves that go down further than we can actually travel. So researchers basically, not just the fact that we've got oral testimonies from, as I say, for example, Tibetan people. Then obviously you've got Admiral Byrd, who suggests that he went into the inner earth. But no, researchers now are, as a general consensus, are now agreeing that inside Earth. Now, we're not talking a huge hollowed out Earth and then there's another Earth inside that. It's more of a cave system that can go deep, deep down. So one of the people that supposedly went into Antarctica. Now, whether or not you believe him, he said he walked for about a mile on a very gradual slope in Antarctica down in this sort of cave thing before he even got to any point where there was vegetation. So there, I mean, the logic's there. Like I say, if you heard the beginning of the video when I just started, I was talking about in America they found a cave system with 13,000-year-old bones in, but they're now submerged, which means the water's risen enough. So, like I say, I think the general consensus is there's things that we can't get to, and they're still exploring those caves. They've done it for a few years, and they're still going bit by bit. Obviously, it's quite a depth and quite a long tunnel or cave system. So, yeah, generally there is now whether or not there's life, because that's probably where you're going with this. Whether or not there's life in the inner Earth, and again, it's not an inner Earth; it's more of a cave system type thing. There's different stories out there. You've got Emery Smith who says no, there's not life, but then later on another video he says there is. Then you've got people that say they've been there, like the person I said walked down there and came across this indigenous species that live underground in this area. Then you've got the Admiral Byrd suggesting that there's aliens helping the Nazis, or were helping the Nazis in Antarctica in the inner Earth part. Now, to be fair, the inner Earth part wasn't so much really for Antarctica for the Nazis at that point, because it was an old base that was used by aliens possibly even before humans were around. So Emma Harris has wrote Romania. I do not know of those mountains. Sorry, I've not come across those. So if you've got anything to add to that, I would love to know. Thank you. Jake, hi there, Jake. Howdy. Thank you for the rose. Someone Marrose. What's your theory on underwater having a second level of underwater that exists? I'm guessing you've seen the film The Meg, where there was a sort of a second layer of water underneath. I like that idea of. I don't know if you guys have seen the film. I like the idea of that, and it kind of made sense that there's a second level. But I think there's probably cave systems underground, but I can't see a second level of water, I'm afraid. Not just me. I'm not an expert on that, but it's possible. I'm guessing it's possible. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the oceans where two oceans meet, I don't know if you guys ever seen it on videos or film or anything. Literally, you can see a line that separates the two oceans. Now, if that can separate the two oceans vertically, then what's to say different? And we know we've actually seen video footage of underwater where it looks like it's there's no water there, and it looks like the water's above, so it gives that illusion, which is, I'm guessing, where that question come from. Gives the illusion that there's sort of a second layer of water, but it's not very deep. It's, I think, I don't know, I'll probably say 20-30 foot before it gets to the sort of the other water. So yes, I guess it's totally plausible. Kaz's wrote, I love your stuff on the Anunnaki. Thank you. I'm still going through the videos on that, and you'll hopefully enjoy the rest that's coming up. Just haven't not seen that film, but this is Jake. Not seen that film, but I've watched a diver that was documented trying to go deeper. I can't remember where it was, but at a certain level it went into a massive pressure unit. Yeah, I mean, it's totally possible, because as that, the ones where David Attenborough does, where the water looks like there's no water, it just looks like an underwater garden. Really, it's amazing. So yes, the water can separate the pressure of that. There we go. Kaz has wrote those parts, or water or brine pools. That's right. Yes, well remembered. Yeah, that's right. So it does keep it separate. So I guess there could be deeper parts than that. Casas wrote very dense with salt. Yeah, I guess it could be. Could be. Okay, so I'm up with the questions, which is good. Unless you've got any other questions, I will waffle on about the Anunnaki only because. Just going back to the flood, the Great Flood. Now, in the book of the 12th Planet, which Zecharia Sitchin done, because I'm going back over everything that I'd read a long time ago. Now, he suggests that it was an ice shelf that broke off, but doing some more research, obviously, the Bible talks about 40 days and 40 nights of rain. Now, I totally believe it was a wooden vessel. Now, the problem I've got with this is where Zecharia Sitchin says that Enki had told Noah to build the ark, forgetting what goes in the ark for a minute, just he told him, from the descriptions, it sounds like he told him to build something with a, we call it hermetically sealed, obviously now we know that word, but back then it was obviously sealed so water can't get in. But the thing was, there was a whole debate between the Anunnaki gods about whether or not to allow this flood to happen. My problem there is that means they had foreknowledge of it, enough time for Enoch to build a boat. Now, if he's on his own building a boat, even with a few people, a big enough boat to house at least some animals in it would have took some time. So Zecharia Sitchin suggests that it was an ice shelf that broke off of the Antarctica and then raised our sea levels. But that wouldn't, I've looked into it, that wouldn't make 40 days and 40 nights of rain. That would have just raised the sea levels. Yes, we probably would have got a bit more water, a bit more rain, because once that ice floated into a warmer area, it probably would have raised up and then dropped down later. You know what rain does in clouds. So could that have been it? Could that have been on its way? Could an ice shelf been on its way to a warmer climate? And would that have caused that amount of rain plus the deluge that supposedly came? So these are things that I'm doing at the moment. I'm trying to get into trying to figure out how the actual floods worked. Adrian has just got my Dulce book. Is that I'm not aware of that. Is that the Dulce where Phil Schneider was? Is there a book on that? I'm not aware if there is. That would be interesting. I've seen Phil Schneider's videos, and anyone that don't know who Phil Schneider is, he's well worth watching. Poor guy's, in my opinion, was bumped off in the end, but he was the guy that went down and bumped into aliens as he was helping dig down in a tunnel in Dulce, New Mexico. Military asked him, he was a engineer type, builder type thing, and they needed to get down in this place because the military knew that there was aliens deep down. He didn't. He went down, dug all this tunnel for them, and then came across these aliens, and there was a firefight between the army and these aliens that were surprised that we suddenly turned up there, and Phil lost 2 fingers in that, in some sort of laser beam that hit him. And now he's going around talking, or was going around talking on stages about what he knows about what's going on. And if you haven't already seen him, look him up, Phil Schneider. Unfortunately, as with all good people, even though he said he was of sound mind, he would never kill himself, and if anything happened to him that looked like he would kill himself, it wouldn't have been him, it would have been someone bumping him off. And unfortunately, he supposedly killed himself, which clearly means someone bumped him off to stop him from talking, and that happens a lot, which is a real shame. Adrian's wrote, yes, that is the book. Oh, I didn't know there was a book. I'm guessing you know all about Phil then. So Lock Monsters asked us what happened here then. So yeah, so that was it really. but Phil knows a lot more than just that Dulce incident. I'm not sure if he's got all of his facts right, because obviously he was getting them from other whistleblowers, etc. after what had happened. But he does know an awful lot of stuff, or did know an awful lot of stuff, which is a real shame. Adrian's wrote, but I guess there's more than Phil's story. Yeah, there's. I mean, I would love just one more person. I don't know if there is one more whistleblower to come from that Dulce incident. I don't know if you know if there is or not, but then that would really 100% corroborate the whole story of the aliens. Then you've got to ask yourself, what was the aliens doing down there? Now, I think, from memory, it's a long time since I watched it, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was something that the aliens locked out the military. So the military knew they were there, but locked them out. So that's why they had to get Phil in to try and dig and create a tunnel down to them. If I'm right, let me know if I am. Adrian's saying the book's called The Dulce Wars. Okay, that's really interesting. That'd be worth me looking up when I get a minute. So yeah, that'd be good. Okay, so there's no more questions unless someone wants to ask something. I'll just pick another subject at random and waffle on. And I'm gonna go with Mickey's just wrote, sorry. Good morning from Waco, Texas. It's safe here now. And dehydrate, my friend. Thank you. Sirius, Star System, and Mary. So I'm guessing you're referring to Mary Magdalene or Mary, Mother of Jesus. So I mean, if that is the thing, don't hate me for the people that follow Bibles and stuff. Nikki's right, yes. So the way it reads now, there's a priest, I think he is, or something similar to that. That has decided that he would go back and I can't remember his name, forgive me, and reread the original text instead of the Bible. And he's more concerned with, not like the ancient text with the Anunnaki, but he was more concerned around the Jesus time. So he went back and actually properly translated it, and this is verified by other people that can read the ancient texts. Now, the differences between what the Bible says and what the ancient texts say is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And when you hear the original texts, you'll find out that Mary was being, the way it reads properly is literally she was beamed up in a ship. She was held against her will. She was impregnated. Was one of the words used. I'm just trying to do it from memory now, but I will be going back around on my videos covering this extensively. And she was paralysed, just like an alien abduction, and then she was transported back down. And the words in there all indicate what we now know of as an alien abduction. Obviously, the Anunnaki had pretty much bugged out by the time Jesus came along. And then, just to give you one more insight on that, obviously you've got the Star of Bethlehem that could have been a UFO. And then on the cross, Jesus was looking up, saying, talking to another light in the sky that was hovering there. Why did you do this to me? Why are you leaving me here? Blah, blah, blah. So, I'll do a proper video on all of that. But when you look at that compared to the Bible and knowing what we now know, and obviously Jesus, the miracle birth, the fact that his skin glowed, the fact that he may have had some sort of telepathic powers to read people's minds, etc., and obviously produced some sort of miracles that couldn't have been done by humans. When you put all of that together, and obviously when you realise, again, forgive me if you don't follow my train of thought, but when I realised that there's the gods that's written about prior to that was the Anunnaki, so you can rule them out because they already had children. We've got got documentation of it. They've written them down, who they had kids with, and blah blah blah. That's all been written in stone. So when it got to Jesus, we know, or I know, that it's not the same child from one of the Anunnakis that beamed her up. They wouldn't have done that. They'd already had their time on Earth with Earth women, so there's no need for them to create such an illusion as to making him the son of God. You know, they've already had sons of gods. They were gods, so they were already on Earth. So there was no need for that. So with Jesus, it lends itself totally to an alien abduction and pregnancy. Now, we do have those now. That is a real thing. People have had pregnancies where it gets to a certain trimester and then suddenly the baby's gone, literally gone out of the womb. And then these people have either slight recall memory of what happened, or they go and get hypnotized and then they find out that they were beamed up and the baby was taken from them. So when you've got the whole of that, you kind of then think, okay, well, it probably was an alien. Jesus was probably an alien hybrid, which, you know, are now walking among us, but back then would have been a miracle, literally. Sorry, I'm just reading now. Nikki's wrote, so the dog on her plate plus her text and Jesus' text, it kind of points to that. I'm guessing, I'm hoping that's what you mean. It points to what I was just talking about. I'm not sure if that's what you mean. So hopefully, but I will be doing videos covering, so keep watching the videos. And I'll go through it all properly and try and give as much evidence as I can as to why I think it was what I said it was. Mickey has asked, so let's talk about the purpose belief of mummification. So again, I will be coming to, I will talk now a bit about it, but I will be coming to mummification because after the Anunnaki came, obviously the Babylonians, and then a couple of other, and then Egyptians were about the fourth race that I'll be talking about after the Anunnaki. Because, but so the mummifications, so as far as I can, the way I see it is the Anunnaki can see spirits, orbs. That's written down a few times in their ancient texts where they say they see a spirit, and they talk a lot about spirits, and they've said they hope bad things will happen to the spirits. They will join them when they die in the spirit world, all that kind of stuff. So they, I think, can, if not see them, certainly sense them. But in the descriptions, they say that they can see like a spirit leaving a dead body. I'm just going to have a quick drink. So now the mummification came in a lot later on when humans were around. So the Anunnaki, there's no evidence that I know of that show the Anunnaki mummifying anything themselves. So when it gets to the mummification side of things, they're pretty much offspring of the Anunnaki and humans. So you've got, for example, Tutankhamun, I'm just going to use that one, and Nefertiti and Akhenaten. Yeah, you pronounced them hopefully right. So if you notice, their skulls are elongated. Now, they are obviously hybrids off of the Anunnaki in some form. Now, the Anunnaki, at one point or another, allowed kingship to happen. So obviously kingship is not much different from pharaoh. So it's basically they allowed individual humans to be an intermediate between the god and the humans. So they created these kingships. Now these kingships, the way I see it is they could see that the Anunnaki were aware of spirits, talked about spirits, and so on. So I think they wanted to, just like with the headboarding, where they would bind the head to try and make their skulls look elongated like the Anunnakis. I think these humans wanted to die and go up into a heaven or up into the spaceship, or to please the god, or something like that for the afterlife. Now, obviously, you've got Osiris, which was one of the gods of the underworld, which was one of the Anunnakis. Eventually, down the line, it wasn't one of the first ones that came, but down the line towards the Egyptian times, you had them. So I think it's more of a human endeavour for the mummification, because I don't think we understood fully how it all worked, and I think we know that the Anunnaki didn't give us all the knowledge that otherwise we'd probably still have it. They kept the knowledge very compartmentalised. I mean, even the Garden of Eden, which actually had their technology in there when they had Adam and Eve there, they said, do not touch, do not learn from this technology, which is the hypothetical Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. So they wanted the technology separate from us. So I don't think they taught us everything about spirits, but I think we tried. This is just my opinion, I might be wrong, but I think we just tried to think that, okay, there is an afterlife because the Anunnaki talk about it, or our gods talk about it in texts. So how can we get to that afterlife? And of course, the rich kings decided to mummify themselves. That's my take on it. I might be way off, but that's where I come from on that. Nikki's wrote, yes, that they are alien, laugh out loud. I'm going back to the Jesus, I'm guessing that was. And Nikki saying she believes they're from Sirius, the aliens that came to impregnate Mary. Interested you say Sirius. What reason do you think that they were from Sirius? Because I do think that as I'm doing these videos, I'll get to a point where the little greys do turn up alongside the Anunnaki and actually help them. And I think they helped them with certain things such as the weapons. Now the old story of Thor and the dwarf, if you watched or know anything about it, or watched Infinity War, there's a dwarf there building the weapon for Thor, and that's actually based on the ancient text. Obviously they've changed it somewhat, but so the little people, I think, are the actual little greys, and they helped the Anunnaki in certain ways. There is carvings of the little greys in ancient times as well, but not as far back as when Anunnaki first came here. So that's what makes me think they came sometime after. And the carving, you've probably seen the carvings of the little creatures with big eyes and stuff. But a lot of people say, they came at the same time as the Anunnaki, but no, they came way later. A couple of 100,000 years after the Anunnaki. Were here, but because obviously they're ancient, people immediately think that the little greys were the ones that was here first, so I'll hopefully cover that and explain more of that in my videos. Hello Sarah, who's doing little waves. Amanda, maybe they saw someone else wrapped up and then put in a cave, and this was taken, who was then taken from this planet. So they did the same. That's actually a good question, because there's that couple of passages of ancient texts that talk about the people being in, or the Anunnaki being in stasis. If there was such a thing as, I can't imagine them being in stasis, because they would sleep long enough as it is. So for them to want to sleep even longer, obviously our time, they don't sleep for one night, 12 hours. They'll sleep for months and months and possibly years, effectively, compared to their time on their planet. But if there is such a thing as a stasis device that they used, for whatever reason, it could have just been a place for them to sleep, like a sarcophagus, obviously that allowed them to breathe, but it was a nice quiet place for them to sleep. But people seeing that will then think that person has died, the Anunnaki had died, because they're not waking up, and they're staying in this bed, for want of a better word, or sarcophagus, for a year, then they would possibly think that that person's gone to the other side. They probably didn't understand that they live a lot longer than us. So it's a good question, Amanda. Good point. Mickey's wrote, "Wow, never thought of that. The stasis idea makes sense to me." Yeah, I mean, when I first read about the stasis, I thought, no, why would they put themselves in stasis? Because they sleep long enough as it is. But it may have been a chamber that blocked out the sound of humans, because we know Enlil in ancient texts complained how loud humans were when he was trying to sleep. And if you're trying to sleep for a year of their time, us little humans probably made a racket. So maybe they made some sort of stasis device that looks like a stasis device, and they translated as a stasis device, but really it was just a sleeping pod that we would probably use somewhere, that type of thing. Corey's wrote, "This is a joke, right?" What part, Corey? Unfortunately, no. The things I say, I don't. I believe. Obviously, I don't believe everything. I throw things out there that I've learned, but as far as aliens and things, absolutely, they're real, and tell that to the people that's been abducted by them and see what they say. Now, Amanda's also wrote, following on, she's becoming too clever for her own good, Amanda is, or they were astral projected. So there's a really good point, because the middle pyramid in Giza, the middle sized one, supposedly the Egyptians, or the rulers, the pharaohs, would go in there and stay the night and astro project, or not necessarily astro project, but get in touch with spirits by staying in that acoustically frequency pyramid that allowed them to get into that mindset, just like the native Indians would do in a sweat lodge. They didn't need to do it with a sweat lodge and drugs, although saying that, we don't know if the Egyptians used some sort of drug while in there. That's possible, but it's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, sometimes they could be seen as astro projecting in a sarcophagus, coming out the next morning. So Corey's wrote, "The sleeping aliens in tombs." So a tomb is where someone dies and was buried. Pyramids are not tombs. No one was ever found in a pyramid, so they're not pyramids. Regardless of what mainstream say, they do say, I was watching something the other day, and it said that tomb robbers had gone in and stole everything from a pyramid, even though the pyramid was sealed and had to be blown open with dynamite to get in. So anyway, crazy. But no, sleeping aliens. Yeah, I mean, if you know anything about the ancient texts, Corey, then you'll realise that the gods that we call gods are statued, written about, carved about, and were physically here. We've got skulls of them. We actually have skeletons, unfortunately. The powers that be have hidden them or destroyed them. But yeah, the aliens need to sleep as well, unfortunately. Corey, I'm well aware the probability of them existing is high. However, intelligent life has been capable of visiting us for past millennia. Why haven't they contacted us? Surely that would be logical thing to do. Okay, so they have. Like I just say, with the skeletons and everything. So we know. I mean, without a shadow of a doubt, if you just read the ancient texts, the carvings, blah blah blah, it all points, and the skeletons and the buildings that they created, it all points to an alien race that came here, genetically modified us into humans. So that's the first alien. So technically we are part alien. Then you've got the people that's been abducted, alien implants, things like that. Now the reason why you're thinking, why ain't they come here and had a chat with us, is first of all, the little greys were abducting people prior to the treaty with Eisenhower. So That was a naughty thing that they were doing, and they shouldn't have been doing that. And there's a council of aliens that have put Earth on a quarantine, and so the little greys were obviously doing it naughty. Until they managed to get an agreement with President Eisenhower that said, okay, you can take people, but in return you give us technology. So that's one reason why those greys don't see us, because in that treaty it basically said, we will keep you quiet, but you have to let us know who you abduct, which they didn't exactly follow that rules. So yes, aliens are here, but they're not allowed to interfere with us in the way that you would think. So there is a prime directive for them too, and that's basically because Earth was put on a quarantine, because the way they work is that, from what I understand, the planets are supposed to evolve naturally. Of course, the Anunnaki came along before Earth was put on a quarantine, and manipulated the indigenous species DNA while they were here. And of course, later on, the Earth was put on quarantine, and so now people can't come and do that and change. So that's why whatever's going to happen to us, in the world wars, whatever's going to happen to us in the future, at this point, there's nothing they can do, because there's an agreement not to interfere with Earth. So unfortunately, if someone wanted to depopulate the planet by using some sort of, I don't know, have a guess, there's nothing, they're not going to come and save us. Same as the God that everyone says, and I've had a few more people saying that Jesus will save us. He didn't save anyone else, and I don't mean to sound rude. There's no one's been saved by Jesus. Yes, you may have personally, had a spirit that helped you in one way or another, but it wasn't Jesus, even though you may think it was Jesus. Now, in fact, going back to that, there's Anunnaki. When little greys come and take you, sometimes people have actually said, leave me alone, in the name of Jesus, and they have, which now that would, to me, make more sense that it was a hybrid of one of those greys, and they know what's going on. So you're saying to the alien that's about to abduct you, I know what you're up to, and I'm fully aware of what's going on. But of course, the religious people will say, oh no, it's because the son of something that we've never seen before, God, an almighty God that we've got no proof of, the son of him, Jesus, will come and attack the little greys. That's why we shout out the word Jesus when we're being abducted. So I think it's more the other way around. I think it's they're fully aware of who Jesus was as one of the first hybrids. So yeah, just scrolling down the messages. Amanda's replying the same thing to Corey. They probably have, but not in the general public. Yeah, I mean, if you're military, Corey, back in the 40s, and you've got Germany, Russia, Japan, all wanting to fight you, and you end up having the ability to have this technology that you've got from little crashed grey ships, UFO ships, are you going to tell the world and say, hey everybody, or even your own country, you're going to tell, or are you going to hide that, and you're going to try and hide that the very best you can, so that you will be the superpower that ends up winning any wars? And unfortunately, that's the way it sort of went. Corey's wrote, is there any physical evidence of this, or is just what people say and write? So what are you referring to, the sort of greys? Or so there's physical evidence on cars where the craft had met or beamed up a car. So for example, Betty and Barney Hills, that's just one of many cars that's been beamed up. Just while on the subject of Betty's clothes had this material on it that scientists couldn't work out what it was, and it was fluorescent under a light. There's fluorescent handprints on walls in people's houses where they've been abducted. 4 little fingers instead of 5. Sometimes there was 6, so there's sort of physical evidence there. You've got scoop marks on people that have been abducted. You've got radiation tests done on them that have been abducted. These are not done by obviously normal people. You've got the alien implants, which do let off a frequency. I mean, the list could go on. So yeah, there's physical evidence out there. I mean, go back to the Travis Walton case. Eyewitnesses, lie detectors, Geiger counters, because the anti-gravity let off this some sort of radiation. So when you go in the vicinity of where a craft had landed, your radiation, your Geiger counter goes off. Same goes with the Rendlesham Forest, where the military people had seen it, recorded, written down what they saw. So the list goes on. Obviously, airplane pilots that have been sacked because they spoke about it. You got the Israeli defense minister. You've got the Canadian defense minister as well that talks about Paul Hellyer, ex-defense minister. He says there's aliens all over us, all around us. The Israeli on his deathbed, the ex defense minister, I think he was, or intelligence person on his deathbed, said, "Look, this is what's happening," and spilled the beans. So, if you blink at all that and you watch the BBC News and stuff like that, then everything that I'm talking about is a load of crap. But if you kind of open your eyes and say, okay, let's not watch mainstream news. Now, the reason why I say mainstream is because when you break it down, we're run by 13 families. The whole planet's pretty much run by 13 families. Probably 14 if you now add the word Gates in there. But there's 13 families, Rothschilds and so on, Rockefellers, and they all pretty much, one way or another, either influence or own the structures that we need: banking, media, magazines, newspapers, and they even fund universities and tell them what to do. There's people that have worked in universities that has worked out what's really going on in the world, in our true history, and once they start talking, they get fired. And that's because, for example, the Rockefellers don't want that our true history to be, and the Smithsonian is funded by the Rockefellers. So once you break all that down, Corey, if you just watch normal TV, then what I'm talking about said, whether it was a god or a human, let's worship me or him. So there's no evidence there of anything either. Now, the Anunnaki didn't actually want us to really worship them. In fact, at one point, Enki, just before the flood started, he denounced the gods and said, "Do not worship them, do not follow them, do not listen to them." But there was no name for the religion that was following. It wasn't a religion. It was just, worship us. There was no sort of name for worshipping the Anunnaki. It wasn't Christian. It wasn't anything. It was just worship us because we are bigger than stronger and we brought you to life. That was pretty much it. But then when you get to Abraham, who supposedly was the first person to come up with the idea of making people follow him and his religion that he created from nothing, because you've got to remember he was human, so people started following him, and then other people got the idea that, hey, let's make up another religion and have people join me, and so that's how religion sort of started. But yeah, the Council of Aliens, that goes back to the proof of that, which is more proof than Christianity, because there's no one singular God, because you can't prove it. But you can prove the Council of Aliens, where you have people that have been regressed in hypnotism, and they go through past life regressions, and they get to the point of telling us, and now these are people that are just like me and you, they've got jobs, but they go there for whatever reason. Sometimes it's to do with anxiety, so they go to a hypnotist and they say, look, I'm scared of water, or I'm scared of this, or whatever, and the hypnotist tries to cure the problem, and they say, well, okay, we can't actually cure that. That's deeper than what. So then they suggest past life regression. So then this person goes to a proper, a hypnotist that can do past life, because it's not, it's a thing you have to certainly train for. So they go to this past life regression people, and then they bring out what that person was as a spirit. So it goes back to previous life, then back to their spirit form, and that's how we know. Now we've got different people all around the world saying the same thing about the Council of Aliens over different time periods, and some of this was obviously way before the internet. So and these ain't publicised stories. These don't go into mainstream newspapers. So the fact that all of these people have said all the same thing about how they meet in front of the Council of Aliens before they join, pick up, do a soul contract and things like that. So we've got kind of, unless you think that they're all very clever and they all made all this crap up just for attention. But going back to the reason why they go to the hypnotist in the first place is because normally what happens is one of their past lives is traumatic. So for example, their last past life, they could have drowned, and thus once they work out that, then the hypnotist, the past life regression hypnotist, can actually work on them to not be so frightened of water. So that, to me, that's pretty conclusive compared to a god that no one can. There's nothing other than the writings, and the writings lead back to the Anunnaki. So that's where I go with that. However, the Anunnaki, as I've mentioned before, do believe that there's something above them, a higher something, and so do the little greys. But what that is, I don't know, because there's no evidence of that. But I would say the evidence, if you with eyewitnesses, I said this many times, but if you take these eyewitnesses that have been abducted, whatever, into a courtroom, then that would pass enough to say that they're real. So Mickey's wrote, it's even written on stuff that's really old. Hydrate, thank you. Well, thank you. Going back to the Sumerian texts, I know people probably think I waffle on a bit too much about them, but let's be honest, they are the first texts on this planet, and they were written before first man was here, so before 300,000 years ago. So you have to say, okay, someone wrote that, and it weren't a light, it wasn't a light being, and it wasn't it had to be something physical. And why would they write about things on another planet and calling us the seventh planet? They wouldn't call us the seventh planet if you were a god. If you're an almighty being, why would you call us the seventh planet? And the seventh planet is outwards from the 12th planet, from their own home planet. And why would they draw star maps, and why would they build these buildings, spaceports and things like that, and refineries, which all got covered over in the flood, bearing in mind. So there's still more to dig up, which is quite interesting. So I've got 10 minutes left, so if anyone's got any questions whatsoever, please do feel free to ask. Anything at all. So I'm just going to go and pick Bigfoot, because I like Bigfoot as a subject, so if anyone's got any questions. So Bigfoot, now I like Bigfoot because they're more intelligent than we are, believe it or not, in some ways, and they bury their dead. They put stones in a pile. Now, I don't think this is the trick. I don't think the burial is exactly under the stones. I think there's I think they put the stones to say the burial's near there, because they're smart enough to know that if they start building loads of stones, we're going to start looking under the stones. Now, they also do glyphs in sticks, and they build these little pictures using sticks, or glyphs using sticks, and they put them on the floor. Now, these are some sort of communication for another Bigfoot to see as a directional tool or a warning or something like that. People are trying to decipher these. So when people are out walking, they take pictures of these glyphs that they see, and they're trying to work out what they represent. But so far, no one's worked it out, which is a shame. Sorry, someone's just wrote, Mr. Inappropriate wrote, I'm going to start posting about the Anunnaki. Would you mind if I tagged you? Absolutely not at all. More than happy to watch your videos, absolutely. Yeah, like I say, you know, what I talk about, people might not totally agree, but it's just what my research has taken me, and obviously if I find new research, I'm more than happy to admit. This is like Zecharia Sitchin, as I say, his first book, 1976. By the time he's got to, you know, prior to him passing, some of what he had said has changed, and that's natural because he's over that 40-50 year period. He's learnt a lot more, and I'm more than happy to learn a lot more about all these kind of things. Jake has asked, what's your YouTube? Not been commenting. I like listening in the background sometimes. No problem at all. So my YouTube channel is called Our True History. You might want to type in the word parts because unfortunately other people's used Our True History before I did for different things. So Our True History parts, and then you'll have all the live chats that I've done, all the videos that are on TikTok, and probably a few other things that was on there as well. I did some drive times with a guy, and we just waffled on about different subjects. But one subject that obviously I try not to cover on here is obviously the pandemic that's going on at the moment. So I, as much as I have my own thoughts on that, I try and avoid saying that because I don't want to get pulled off. Even though I think it's slightly to do with stuff that I've learned in the past as well. Mr. Inappropriate has wrote, I find it more believable than any religion. Yeah, I mean, it just goes back to logic, doesn't it? You know, if you're logical and you look at the evidence, as long as you look at the evidence and you see, like I've got a video coming out showing the sizes of the doors of all the structures that the Anunnaki were in ancient times, and they're 13 foot plus. Then there's doors that humans are in and they're like 7 foot. So, you know, when you add all of that together, yeah, it does make it more believable. And I struggled with religion you know, when I was younger. My mum made me bloody kneel. I remember my mum made me kneel on the edge of my bed once and clasp my hands and pray for something or other. And I just felt wrong. I just felt so wrong. But obviously the power of intention, as we know now, group consciousness can actually affect things, but or I believe they can. Yeah, so Mickey's wrote, what do you think about unlocking the full capacity of the brain and the possibility of unique abilities? It's a very good question. So if you go back to the ancient texts, after Cain and Abel's fight, it kind of points to the fact that they stopped humans having beards, which obviously I've done in some of my videos that mention that the beards are obviously a status symbol. So if they genetically modified humans at that point to stop having beards, and we also believe that they genetically modified us 300,000 years ago to create the first Adam and Eve, you know, and we've got two fused chromosomes. Now, I've looked into the fused chromosomes. This is I'm going to be getting to that down the line, but I've looked into the fused chromosomes, and I've seen people say, yes, it's a common thing in animals. So, okay, right, just point me to one animal, you know, proper site, not someone saying, oh, a horse has got two fused chromosomes or something like that. I want a proper site where it's not just some guy on a forum talking. And I can't find one. Yet I can find people repeating everything else that other people said about the fused chromosomes. I can read it all day long. Someone saying, yeah, there's fused chromosomes in animals. But I can't find one piece of evidence to point to one particular animal that has had a fused chromosome, whereas we know humans have. We know that. That's that's a fact. So I'm just wondering whether that fused animals out there is a red herring, because obviously if humans are the only ones that had the fused chromosomes, then it does lead to us to believe that we was genetically modified. So going back to your question about unlocking the full capabilities, yes, I think there's certain parts of our brain that we certainly don't use. I mean, if you look at Rain Man, I know it's a movie, but it's based on a real person, and that certain part of his brain was enlarged. Supposedly so was Einstein's, and mine's probably massive. No, I'm joking. Certain parts, so basically your brain is a muscle, and the more you use something, and it's the same as ESP and psychic abilities, the more you use it, and that's what the secret military police have been doing for a long time with all their secret projects. So if you use your brain and you can unlock that, whatever it is that we can't get to, then absolutely I think we are way more capable of what we can do now. But unfortunately, I think possibly, I'm not saying the Anunnaki suppressed it, but they in the text they certainly tried to stop us from growing proper beards. Okay, Jake's wrote, if I search it as all one word, your top search result. Oh, thank you, brilliant, that's great. Thank you, subscribe, that's great, thank you. Mr. Inappropriate, no, I agree. If you look at the 13th century castles on the doors, much smaller, people were smaller then, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this just goes back to the logic, doesn't it? The ancient buildings had massive doors, and I always wondered why that when I was a kid, but I didn't know about the Anunnaki then, that they were 8 to 10 foot tall, plus their hats. Most of the Anunnakis wore some sort of turban-looking hat. I'm not saying it was a turban, but it gives that impression on the carvings. So, Mr. Inappropriate, why huge tall doors? There has to be a logical reason. Yes, yeah. I mean, no one would build a tall door that big, and a lot of the doors don't even actually have doors on them unless they've come off since. So they were more archways into a building. So I can't. The doors that are now there, the wooden doors that are there now, I would have thought would have disintegrated a long time ago. So whether there was doors there, I know buildings still have tall doors, but I think these are more modern doors been put on after. So I don't know if there was ever doors, or and it was just arches for them to walk into a different room, or whether there was physical barrier of some sort. I guess no one's looked into whether or not there was sort of hinges on those big places. It'd be interesting. Mark UK81's wrote there were giants. Yes, I'm going to be getting back around to the giants very soon. I know I touched on it on videos way back. But yeah, I'm going to be going sort of in depth like I am with the Anunnaki. So watch this space, subscribe, do whatever you need to do if you haven't already done so. Mickey's wrote, thank you for your answer, sir. You're more than welcome. That's what I'm paid to do. I'm not paid. Mr. Inappropriate wrote, and wasn't I'm not even going to pronounce that. XERXES. I'm terrible at pronunciations. Like in Persia, known as giant. And Amanda's replied to that, very tall. The Great Pyramid. I'm only rushing now because I've got like 1 minute left. The Great Pyramid original door was huge. And that was from Mark UK. Okay, so I'm up to my end of my time. I'm so sorry about this, but this live chat that I've recorded will go on to YouTube probably tonight, if not tomorrow. But all my other live chats are on YouTube as well, so do go there and subscribe if you want to, and watch all the videos. And hopefully I'll see you all again very soon. Amanda's saying I've managed to catch up today. Yeah, so brilliant. Thank you everybody for listening. And I'll stick up a video in 5 minutes on my channel anyway. So I didn't put it up yet this morning. So thank you everyone, and I will catch you all very soon on live chats. If not, watch my videos. Talk to you soon. Thank you everybody. Bye.